Hi everybody, this is Mike from BetterMe, and today I want to talk about what the squeeze actually is. So the squeeze is when you have something like inflation today. So when you have inflation, that means you have a lot of dollars that were put into the economy. When you have more dollars put in the economy without actually increasing the actual wealth of people out there, what happens is the supply of money actually goes up. The demand of products actually goes up, but those supplies of those products go down. And so what happens is, because there's increased demand for products, because there is a oversupply of money, the price of those products actually go up, and it costs more to actually purchase those goods, purchase those services, which is a lot of times why you're seeing an increase right now. At the time of this recording, you're seeing an increase in food, you're seeing an increase in gas prices, you're seeing an increase in price of pretty much everything out there today, because again, there is an increase in demand, but there is not enough supply of that product. So it's really just a supply and demand game. And so what happens is, when people start to get squeezed, incomes really aren't rising right now. So what's happening is the cost of goods, the cost of services are actually going up. People's incomes are pretty much staying the same, or there's actually layoffs that are occurring. And so when that happens, what's the next thing that you do normally to survive? Well, if you're in the middle class, or if you're not able to survive on your actual income, what happens is you turn to credit. And so this society is a real big credit-based system. This whole economy is a credit-based system. There is about $50 trillion out there in credit, where there is about $3 trillion out there in actual cash, actual printed money out there in circulation, which is a huge difference. And so this economy operates a lot on credit. And so what happens is, when we're feeling the squeeze and we don't have enough money to buy our goods and services, to buy the food that we need, to buy the drugs that we need, like the prescription drugs that we need to feel better, when we don't have enough money to buy, or to go out to restaurants like we used to do, all of those things, what we tend to do in this economy is we tend to go towards credit. And so credit isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it can be a bad thing when we aren't paying off our debts at the end of every month and we're accruing interest. It can be a bad thing when we're using credit to actually buy more than we can afford, when we're over leveraging ourselves. And that's a big reason why we get into different cycles in this economy, when we see ups and downs in the economy. A big reason for that is credit, because we get into situations where we're overextending ourselves, and then ultimately we're not able to pay back. So we have all this interest, all these fees on our credit cards, and all of a sudden it starts to creep up, and people have a really hard time paying off their debt. So for example, if you make $100,000 per year and you have really good credit history, if you have really good income, then you're actually able to borrow, let's just say $10,000. So if you think about it now, you're able to actually spend $110,000. So you used to be able to spend $100,000 because that's what you made, right? So we're not talking about taxes or anything right now. We're just talking about a strict $100,000. Let's just say you made that, you were able to spend it. Well, now that you have this credit, now you're able to spend $110,000. So technically right now, if you're able to spend $110,000 and you only make $100,000, you're over leveraged. So you're actually spending too much. You're spending more than you owe. And that's a lot of times what people do. So there's a lot of differences here when it comes to credit and why people are feeling the squeeze. So if you take a couple of examples. So if I take the first example, where I'm going to go in a department store and I'm going to buy a big screen TV. But the problem is, I don't have the $2,000 or the $500 or $1,000 to buy the TV. So what am I going to do? I'm going to put that TV on credit. Even though I don't have the money today, I'm actually borrowing from my future self. I'm saying, hey self, I know that eventually you're going to have that money, or eventually you're going to be able to pay that off because you're going to use monthly payments, but you don't have that money in your pocket today. You don't have that income today. So you're going to use credit to go ahead and pay that for that TV. So the problem is, now you're over leveraging yourself because you didn't have that money in the first place. But on the contrary, if you use credit for a purpose to actually make you money, that's a little bit different. And that's where credit can actually get really interesting and really fun. So for example, if I had a business and I wanted to buy a piece of equipment, let's just say I wanted to buy a printing press, and I knew that printing press was actually going to allow me to sell 50,000 more books every single year. Well, ultimately that credit is making me money. So I'm able to make a profit, I'm able to make money, and I'm actually able to pay back my debts. So conversely, if you're a consumer and you're purchasing things like big screen TVs, or if you're purchasing things like electronic equipment or computers or something like that, and aren't using it to make you money, then ultimately these things are putting you into debt and they're creating liabilities for you. So what a really good rule of thumb is to take your debt and make sure that you pay off that debt at the end of every month. Because the longer you let that go, the more fees are being introduced into your account. The more interest is being charged to your account. And so I always ask people, like, who do you think is making 26 to 35% interest on their money? And the answer is the credit card companies. Today, the credit card companies are making about 30%, 35%, 26%, whatever it is based on the credit card company, if you don't pay off your credit cards at the end of every month. So the goal is you want to make sure that you're paying off your credit cards at the end of every month. That's one way to avoid the squeeze, is making sure that you don't have the debt, or if you have the debt, you're making sure that you pay off that debt at the end of every month, and that you're making sure that you're using your debt in an efficient way to be able to actually make you money. And I know it's hard during a squeeze where, again, we're feeling that wages aren't going up. We're feeling that the cost of goods, the cost of services that we have available to us in this country are actually going up because of inflation. So the only thing we can do is, other than our savings, we can turn towards this credit and we can be able to buy what we need now. But again, if we don't pay off that debt and we don't pay off that debt soon, then it's actually that's the number one killer, I believe, to people's finances, is actually being over leveraged and having debt. So that's the number one way you can actually be able to stop the or to be able to help yourself to not feel a squeeze. The next one is going to be getting a side hustle. So there's really no shame in getting a side hustle. I tell people all the time, there are all kinds of different side hustles out there, and everything is really sales nowadays. I know a lot of people don't like sales, but everything is really sales. So if you can find something that's really cool and stick with it, you might actually find that you might transition into this thing full time versus actually being part time. You might actually get to like it. There's all kinds of freelancing programs out there. There's places like Fiverr, there's places like Upwork that are constantly looking for people to join their teams, to be able to freelance, to be able to help people out with all different things that they need or that they want done for their businesses. So that's the second way that you could actually use to be able to increase the amount of income that's coming in. The third thing is assets. Making sure that if you do have cash put aside, that you're actually purchasing assets, they're actually making you money. So I always talk about assets versus liability. So what is an asset? An asset is something that builds in value and actually produces income for you. Whereas a liability actually takes money out of your pocket. So things like that big screen TV, things like a brand new car, all those things, while the brand new car will get you from A to B, does it really have to be a brand new car? Can it be a used car? Right? And so those things, it's important to think about, because there are different impacts to buying a used car versus a new car, for example. For a brand new car, you have depreciation when you pull it off the lot, when you drive it off the lot. For a used car, it's going to be a lot cheaper, the payments are going to be more manageable, or you could buy that car in cash. And so it's really important to understand, when we're buying things, are we buying things that are going to make us money, or are we going to buy things that are taking money out of our pocket? So another thing is to be able to invest. So investing, if you do it long term, it could actually be beneficial for you. I'm not one for actually day trading. I'm not one for buying and selling on the daily, but I do like to buy things and hold them, things like index funds that are actually low cost and that actually have a basket of goods within them with a bunch of different companies. And so I don't really have to do all the trading. I don't have to do the choosing of the stocks. I can actually buy into the index, and I can hold that, and I can see it perform over time. So that's another way to be able to purchase an asset and have it make income for you. So guys, those are 3 ways to avoid the squeeze. A little bit about inflation in there, a little bit about why prices actually rise. So again, it's all about supply and demand. And again, because incomes aren't really rising right now, but the prices of goods and services are rising, it's really, and consumer debt is actually rising as well. It's really difficult right now to try and avoid that squeeze. But again, if you use some of the things that I mentioned in this video, you may be able to avoid that squeeze for yourself and your family. So guys, if this video helped you, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment if you have any questions. You can find me at info@5pillarfinancial.com. That's info@5pillarfinancial.com. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video.